Mac, now don't worry. I've been sailing these high seas for a long time. I know all there is to know about sailing. I want you to do just one thing, and that one thing is just listen. If you can just listen, if you listen, we'll be okay.
I can listen.
You got it? Can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, listen to this. Okay, the pointy end up here, that is the bow. Back here we have the stern. In the middle we have the mast. Down below we have a 7-foot, 11-inch keel. Okay, just listen. That's all I need. If you can just listen, we'll be okay, all right?
I think I can.
Okay. Okay, Mac, I want to go over some of the rigging that we'll need when you go on the lake. Now, this is super important. You've got to listen. This is super important, okay? Okay, I'm going to start with some of the lines. We've got the starboard spinnaker halyard, the jib halyard, the main halyard, topping lift, boom lift. We've got the boom lift right here. It goes up to the top of the mast. We have 2 spreaders. Okay, you got that so far? We okay?
I think so.
Okay, just need to watch. Okay, we've got the halyards right here. You can use this as the main halyard. We've got the jib halyard up front. We ought to head back in. I think the wind's kind of kick up from the west here. We better do it. Do you know what to do?
I think so.
Okay, Mac, ready about.
Which way?
About. Hurry, about. Just going this way. Hurry. Get ready. What are you doing? I don't know. We're going hard over you. Mac, what are you doing? What are you doing? I don't know. Stop right, the right. You got the sheet. We need the sheet Mac now. Oh, my butt. Ah! Stop goofing off. Stop goofing off there. Come on, Mac. Mac, come away close to the rocks. Mac, wake up. The sheet. We need the sheet Mac now. Let's go. Come on. Over the other one, the other side. Starboard. Somebody's right, to the right. It's the right. Let it out. Come on. Mac, come on, over here. Watch. No, that's the main sheet. Let it out. Let it go, come on. Stop it. Mac, what are you doing? Come on. Come on, Mac, come on. The sheet. We need the sheet Mac now. Come on, let's go. Come on. Watch it. I got you. First time out, eh?
As you can plainly see, Maynard has turned an enjoyable sailing experience into an abridged version of the sinking of the Titanic. If Maynard had only taken the time to familiarize his partner with terms like port and starboard, sheets and halyards, this disaster could have been prevented.
This presentation will illustrate how precision teaching vocabulary practice sheets can help students acquire the critical vocabulary and definitions from selected course content.
You will see a demonstration on the uses of precision teaching practice sheets in a classroom. You will also receive instructions on how to implement this strategy. Be sure you have the instructional packet that accompanies this video. You will be directed to page numbers as we move through the presentation.
Look at page 1 in your packet. There are 3 objectives for this presentation. First, you will be able to define precision teaching vocabulary practice sheets. Second, you will be able to list 5 major steps for constructing these sheets. And third, you will be able to develop and use an effective precision teaching practice sheet in your classroom.
Let's begin with a definition. The precision teaching vocabulary practice sheet strategy is a term for a drill sheet which is carefully designed according to certain criteria. The sheet should contain key vocabulary and definitions from selected course content. These sheets require students to practice words and ideas repeatedly in short time periods, such as 1 or 2 minutes. It is also important to note that the use of these sheets should follow some type of teacher-directed instruction, rather than as the primary way to present information. It is appropriate to use this strategy as a guided or independent practice technique.
Look at the two different examples on pages 2 and 3 in your packet. Notice in the example on page 2 that the definitions are listed in boxes with the matching vocabulary word on the back side of the page. The example on page 3 illustrates items that are listed in columns with the corresponding item on the right-hand side of the page. Students can fold the sheet down the middle of the page to conceal the answers. Many other examples of timed practice sheets will also be illustrated throughout this presentation.
What are some of the benefits in using precision teaching practice sheets? Look at page 1 in your packet as we discuss benefits. 1. The sheets help students to focus on the important vocabulary from selected content.
2. This strategy assists students in retaining and organizing information. The information is paired together and students have multiple opportunities to practice the concepts. As students' rates increase through timed practice, they remember and generalize important information.
3. This strategy helps to keep students actively involved, as you will see in the classroom demonstration.
4. Research has shown that students will do better on tests as a result of using this strategy. Certainly, as students become more proficient with the material, they will remember it longer.
5. With experience, students can learn to develop their own practice sheets, which may help them to be more successful in other classes. And 6, and certainly important, students report that they have fun using these sheets.
Let's take a look at a teacher in a classroom using this strategy. Look at page 4 in your packet to see a close-up of the practice sheet and the answer key which is being used in this example. Notice if the students are focused on the important information. Can you see evidence that the students are remembering the information as a result of repeated practices on the same item? Check the number of practice opportunities afforded students during this 2-minute timing. Notice that the student answer key is on a different color of paper. Are the students giving their partners feedback? Do the students appear to be having fun?
Since vocabulary words were repeated numerous times on the page, students were responding faster and faster each time they encountered a definition. This time practice technique was an efficient way to give students multiple exposures to important concepts, as well as multiple opportunities to respond. As you can see, this is a useful way to assist students to remember important information.
You have observed students practicing in pairs. Students can also use this strategy independently by writing their answers during a timed practice session. Look at the next example where students are practicing the material alone.
Today, you are going to do your practice by yourself. We're not going to do it in partners. So I want you to take out your See to Write vocabulary sheet from Chapter 8. Make sure it's just the white copy, not the answer key, which is in green. Put it under the plastic and get your pens ready. We'll time you for 2 minutes. Pens ready? Please begin.
In this example, the teacher has provided plastic overlays and pens for the students. The same practice sheet does not have to be duplicated each day. In the next example, the words and definitions have been written on each side of a card. Students can check themselves as they say the words at a faster rate.
The object color seen by the eye.
Characteristic shape of a mineral.
The characteristic shape of a mineral. How a mineral splits or breaks. How a mineral splits or breaks. Cleavage. How a mineral splits or breaks. Cleavage fracture. How easily a mineral can be scratched. Hardness. How a mineral splits or breaks. Cleavage fracture. How easily a mineral can be scratched.
Remember, these types of practices are designed to follow the teacher's instruction on new material.
Think about situations where you could use precision teaching vocabulary practice sheets. This strategy is best used in situations where you want students to practice matching or associating two pieces of information that logically fit together. Remember, this is an intensive practice technique because of the number of opportunities provided in a short period of time. We will now discuss a variety of different examples and formats for precision teaching practice sheets.
Turn to the practice sheets on page 5 in your packet illustrating science vocabulary words and their definitions. This type of sheet could be developed for many different subject areas where students are required to say or write the vocabulary word and the definition. One side of the page serves as the answer key, while the other side is the stimulus which prompts the student response.
The next examples on page 6 illustrate vocabulary words paired with synonyms. Again, this type can work well for a broad range of subjects. Think about your subject area. Could this format be used for certain key concepts that you want students to master?
The practice sheets on page 7 have been developed using math facts and answers. Although this does not involve vocabulary words, it does require students to match two pieces of information, the answer with the fact or the fact that goes with the answer.
Look at page 8. Here, words and abbreviations are paired together. Again, think about your subject area. Are there certain words and abbreviations which your students should be able to say or write quickly?
The next example on page 9 illustrates dates and important events. Consider your content area. What important events do you expect students to master?
Turn to page 10. Here you will see an example of foreign words and their meanings. Do you have any specialized vocabulary that are required in order for students to be proficient with the material?
Look at page 11 in your packet. In these examples, numbers are paired with the written word for the number. A number of other subject areas such as chemistry, physics, home economics, and vocational education lend themselves to this strategy.
The last example on page 12 shows how important words in story problems can be paired with the required operation.
Can you think of situations in your content area where this practice strategy could be used? What format might you use? With a partner, discuss areas where you could use precision teaching practice sheets.
Then, write your ideas down on page 13. You should also refer to the appendix at the end of your packet, beginning on page A1. Here you will see examples of practice sheets which will help you to generate many more ideas. Stop the tape and complete this activity.
How did you do? Were the two of you able to generate some creative ideas and areas for using practice sheets? Did the additional examples in the appendix help you to see that there is practically no limit to the number of ways that these sheets can be used?
How then do you go about constructing these practice sheets? Let's look at this teacher as she develops an appropriate precision teaching practice sheet. Turn to page 14 in your packet. Get ready to complete the outline as we explain the steps for developing practice sheets.
The first step in developing precision teaching practice sheets is to select the content material. The teacher is preparing for an earth science class. She has decided to develop a practice sheet for vocabulary words and definitions in a chapter which deals with materials of the Earth's crust. On page 14 in box B, write Select Content Material. Decide what material you will select for your own practice sheet.
The second step in constructing a precision teaching practice sheet is to determine the specific objective. The objective includes the input and output modalities. For example, do you want the students to see the vocabulary word and then say the definition? Or see the definition and then say the vocabulary word? Perhaps you want both. In other situations, you may want students to hear the vocabulary word and then mark the definition. It is important to clearly determine your objective, or your input and output modalities, so that the practice activity matches the specified outcome. This teacher wants the students to see the definition and then say or write the word. In box C, write Determine the objective. Remember, this should include the input and output modalities. Think about what your objective might be for a practice sheet.
In discussing this step on objectives, it should also be noted that the final student outcome for a particular section of content may require more than mastery of vocabulary words and definitions. However, proficiency with the key vocabulary words should be viewed as one important prerequisite to mastery of other critical skills. In fact, when students are fluent with the vocabulary and definitions, they are able to perform better on other cognitive tasks.
The next step in constructing practice sheets involves choosing the most important vocabulary and definitions for a particular section of content, like an entire unit. There may be 20 or 30 or more vocabulary words for a particular unit that represent the most critical concepts for student mastery. The teacher has surveyed the chapter for all of the important concepts. In box D, write, "Choose key vocabulary for entire unit."
Each practice sheet, however, will contain only 5 to 8 different items selected from the entire list. Although these items will be repeated several times on a practice sheet, it is important that each sheet have only a limited number of different items. Therefore, in this step you want to carefully select and group vocabulary from the entire chapter or unit into small chunks of 5 to 8 items. For instance, each practice sheet may include vocabulary that corresponds to the information presented in a daily lesson. In box E on page 14, write "Select small segments of 5 to 8 items."
Let's further illustrate what we're talking about in boxes D and E. Look at page 15 in your packet. This list of vocabulary at the top of the page represents all of the important concepts selected for an entire unit. Each individual practice sheet developed, like the one on the bottom of the page, would contain only 5 to 8 different concepts to be used during the daily time practice. Again, the 7 items on this practice sheet were selected from the list at the top. These concepts will correspond with a daily instructional lesson.
Refer back to page 14 in your packet on constructing practice sheets. The last step involves preparing the student's practice sheet and the accompanying answer key. The teacher has selected 5 to 8 different items and is preparing the student's sheet by writing the definitions in the boxes on the sheet. In box F, write "Prepare student practice sheets." Here are some additional useful tips to consider as you construct your own practice sheets.
1. Label the sheet with the student response you expect, such as say, write, mark, match, and so on. In other words, include the objective.
2. Include only 5 to 8 different items on a page. Then repeat these items at least 2 or 3 times on the page so that students have multiple practice opportunities during the timing. It is also important to place items in random order so that students will not memorize a particular sequence or pattern.
3. Determine the length of your timing. Generally, 1 or 2 minutes will allow students sufficient time for an intensive but efficient practice.
4. Do not overcrowd the page. If you expect students to write answers, then leave adequate space for a complete response.
5. Provide more items than the student can complete during the timing period. Otherwise, students will finish before the end of the time practice, and then you have put a lid on learning. If the practice sheet involves saying answers, instruct the students to start over if they finish before the end of the timing period.
6. Develop an answer key. It is helpful if the answer key can be printed on the back side of the page. Or, if items are in columns, then answers can appear down the side. Make sure that the answers correspond sequentially. Some teachers like to print the answer page using a different color of paper. The teacher can quickly scan a classroom and determine if all students are looking at the right sheet.
7. Provide prompts if necessary. For example, certain students may need to have the answers listed at the top of the page.
8. Make sure that the readability level is appropriate. For example, when learning a new vocabulary word or concept, it is important that students already understand the meanings of the words contained in the definition.
Let's go back and quickly review the steps you filled in for constructing precision teaching practice sheets.
First, select the content, or in other words, for what curricular area will you be developing these practice sheets?
Next, determine the specific objective. What should the students be able to do, and how should they perform?
Third, choose key vocabulary and definitions for an entire section of content. You will decide which concepts are the most important for a unit.
4. Select small segments of 5 to 8 items for one practice sheet. Remember, it will be important to sequence these small chunks so that they correspond with the daily lessons.
And 5, prepare students' practice sheets. Remember the important tips like repeating items 2 or 3 times on the page as you develop the student copies of practice sheets and the answer keys.
You're now ready to develop your own practice sheet. Page 16 in your packet will help you as you complete this activity. It will also be important to refer to pages 17 through 20. Here you will find some blank practice sheets that have been pre-formatted. These forms can be useful when developing new practice sheets. Use the worksheet on page 16 to help you develop a practice sheet with your own content material. Stop the tape and develop your own precision teaching practice sheet.
How did you do? Did you select the most important concepts from a unit of material? Did you remember to label your sheet? Did you have approximately 5 to 8 items on the page? Were these items repeated at least 2 or 3 times? How long will your practice timings be? If students were expected to write answers, did you leave adequate space?
Did you include more items than the students could complete during the time practice or instructions to start over? Did you develop an answer key to correspond with the practice sheet? Will students be able to read the material? Will students understand words used in your definitions? Are prompts necessary? Should you provide answers at the top of the page? Now that you've had some practice developing a practice sheet, let's spend some time discussing ways in which you might want to use the practice sheets. Refer to page 21 in your packet. At the top of the page, you will see some procedures for conducting partner practice. Notice in this classroom, students are working in pairs and giving each other immediate feedback.
The color left by the mineral when rubbed against a streak. Correct. The ability of a mineral to reflect, bend, or absorb light. Luster.
You're on a roll.
Okay. How easily a mineral can be scratched. Hardness.
That's correct.
The object color as seen by the eye. Color.
That's correct.
How a mineral splits or breaks. I don't know.
Cleavage and fracture.
The ability of a mineral to reflect, bend, or absorb light. Luster.
That's correct.
After 1 or 2 minutes, partners switch roles. If students finish the page before the time practice is over, they simply start over from the top. Practice sheets can be stored in the student's folder. When necessary, additional timings can be conducted on previous pages in order to provide systematic review.
At the bottom of page 21, you will see some other uses of precision teaching practice sheets for homework, pre-tests and post-tests, or for group games. Can you think of some other appropriate uses?
Now turn to page 22 in your packet. Here you will see a precision teaching practice sheet to help you review the information presented in this videotape. Select a partner and practice saying the words for 2 minutes. Then switch roles so your partner also gets a turn saying the answers out loud. Be sure and give each other immediate feedback. If your partner doesn't know an answer, you give the answer. Remember to praise your partner for correct answers. Stop the tape and spend 2 minutes each practicing this sheet.
How did you do? Were you able to remember the answers after repeated practices? Did you find that you were able to go faster and faster? Did you remember to give your partner immediate feedback if an error was made and praise for correct responses? And did you have fun?
We hope that you will have some fun developing and using this practice strategy in your classroom. Students frequently report this to be one of their favorite practice activities, and research has shown that the appropriate use of precision teaching practice sheets can improve students' performance in many areas.
Now that Maynard's partner can understand the nautical vocabulary, their sailing can be an enjoyable and safe experience.
Okay, Meg, this should be a pretty good day. Did you get a chance to go over that sheet that I gave you with all the terms on it?
I've looked at it 100 times. I've got it down cold.
Okay, let me go over some of the terms just to make sure you've got it. Okay, remember the pointy end is the bow. Back here we have the stern.
Oh yeah, I've got that. You got the mast, we got the standing rigging, we got the running rigging, we got the blocks, we got the cars.
All right.
We got the spinnaker pole. We've got the main sails right there. I assume the jib is below somewhere inside the boat.
Oh, excellent,
excellent. Got the main sheets back there. Looks like you've got some safety gear on the boat, man overboard pole. Looks like the boat is very well prepared.
Mac, you've got it. All right, good deal, good deal. Let's go, come on, this is gonna be fun. Prepare to tack. Okay, I'm ready, Maynard. Good, you got it. All right, helm's a lead. Here we go. That was super.
Boy, that was fun.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you really picked up on those terms. That was amazing.
Well, it was because of that precision teaching sheet you gave me. That was marvelous.
Okay, great. Sounds good. We'll use it again.